So we're going to expand and simplify 10n minus 1 squared. So that simply means that we are multiplying 10n minus 1 by itself. So 10n minus 1 multiplied by 10n minus 1. So let's look at the 10n in the first bracket first and multiply that by 10n in the second bracket. So that gives us 10 times 10 and n times n. So 10 tens are 100 and n multiplied by n is n squared. And then sticking with the 10n in the first bracket, but now looking at the minus 1 in the second bracket, well, that will give us 10n times negative 1, so minus 10n. So we've multiplied the 10n in the first bracket by both elements of the second bracket. So now we'll look at the minus 1 in the first bracket and multiply that by each of the elements in the second bracket. So we've got minus 1 times 10n, so that's just minus 10n again. And then minus 1 multiplying minus 1 gives us plus 1, because a negative multiplying a negative gives us a positive. So that's the expanding. And now to simplify, well, the 100n squared will stay as it is, but we've got minus 10n and minus another 10n, so altogether we are subtracting 20n, and we've still got the plus 1 at the end. You might like to check this. So a way of doing this is to substitute in a value for n, because remember what we've got here is something that should be true for any value of n. So if we substitute a value in for n for both the left-hand side and the right-hand side, for what we've shown this is equal to, we should get the same number. So let's try a few values. This isn't a proof, but it's a good way of having some idea if you've got the right answer. So for n equals 0, then we've got that 10 times 0 minus 1 squared is equal to, well, 10 times 0 is 0, and we're subtracting 1. Then we're just subtracting 1 from 0, so we've just got negative 1. So that gives us negative 1 squared, which is a negative times a negative, so it's 1 squared, which is 1. And our answer is 100n squared minus 20n plus 1. So we should find that when we put the n in there, so our 0 in there, we're going to get 100 times 0 squared, which is 100 times 0, minus 20 times 0 plus 1. So the first two elements there are going to come out as 0, aren't they? Because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So we've just got 0 minus 0 plus 1, so we've just got 1. So that shows that when n is 0, our answer looks fine. We could try n equals 1. So when n is 1, we've got 10 times 1 minus 1 squared is 10 minus 1, which is 9 squared, which is 81. And for our answer, we've now got 100 times 1 squared, so 100 times 1 minus 20 times 1 plus 1. So that's 100 minus 20 plus 1. So that's 100 minus 20, that's 80, plus 1 is 81. So far, so good. So those values there were both very, very simple values, and there's a chance that you could have got the wrong answer in the algebra and yet still this checking would have come out as right. So it's a good idea to check some other more interesting number. So you could choose minus 2, plus 2, even a fraction. Should we try a fraction? What shall we do? Let's have n equals a half. So when n equals a half, we've got 10 times a half inside the bracket, haven't we? And then we're subtracting 1 and then squaring. So 10 times a half is a half of 10. So that's 5. 5 take away 1 is 4. So that's 4 squared, which is 16. And so now we're going to look at our answer. So we had 100 times n squared. So a half squared is 1 squared over 2 squared. So it's a quarter. So that's 100 times a quarter. And then we're subtracting 20 times a half and then adding on the 1. So we're looking at a quarter of 100, which is 25. And then we're subtracting a half of 20, which is 10. And then we're adding on 1. So 25 minus 10 is 15, plus 1 is 16. So it's looking very hopeful, because we have found each time when we've tried to check a value for n that the 10n minus 1 all squared is the same as 100n squared minus 20n plus 1. So we've just moved the checking to one side, and I'll just show you another way that you might like to think about multiplying out these brackets, or squaring. So once you're happy with the method and you understand what you're doing, you don't have to write out the two brackets. So instead, what you might like to do is just think of 10n multiplying itself to give you the 100n squared, and then the minus 1 multiplying itself to give you the plus 1, and then the 10n multiplying the minus 1 giving us a 10n, and then the minus 1 multiplying the 10n yet again to give us the minus 10n. And then we can do our simplification, again giving us the same answer, written in a slightly different order. We'd normally write this as I did in the first one, where we're starting with the highest power of n and gradually decreasing, but you can see those last two lines are exactly the same. The most important thing to remember is that you need to have the 10n multiplying the minus 1 twice. The most common error that students make here is to only multiply the 10n by the 10n and the minus 1 by the minus 1. And even the other bad error is to forget that you've got a negative times the negative. Some people write down an answer of 100n squared minus 1, which would not be right.